A warm welcome to our webcast on coping with rising costs. Your presenters are myself, Quimby Bunce, and my colleague Warren Holman, both from RIB. What I would like to do is set the scene around how a volatile economy is placing pressure on us as construction professionals to find a better way. What Warren will then do is show you practically how our software can support you in better mitigating your risks related to managing your actual costs versus your budgeted costs for a project. Let's get started. So I want to share with you three things. Firstly, I'd like to recap some of the important principles of digital transformation, particularly those with most relevance to construction. This is because they are the same principles we will be enlisting to solve the problem statement of rising input costs. Secondly, I want to share some reporting and stats that describe this perfect storm we're heading into as an industry. A perfect storm in that we will confront significant opportunity, but will need to manage that opportunity against the backdrop of difficult economic circumstances. Lastly, as a lead into the next presentation, I want to touch on the role of technology in supporting you. As I'm sure you are aware, the construction industry is one of the least digitized industries, sitting alongside agriculture. Useful to point out, digitized does not refer simply to the adoption of technology, but is measured in productivity, output versus inputs. That is to say, what is the dollar value output for every man-hour expended? In this new digitalized world, data is emerging as the new currency. The value of meaningful, accurate information being available at the right time can't be overstated. As you can see, much of construction's challenges come down to our inability to properly store and serve up our data across disciplines and stages in the construction process, at speed and with trusted fidelity. So first off, is there any reason to pursue transformation within the construction industry? After all, construction at full mast has contributed to 13% of global GDP and employed 7% of the world's working population. These are accomplishments the industry can be proud of. Nevertheless, I see two good reasons. The first is that according to McKinsey, if the global construction industry's productivity had grown at the same rate as the global economy, the added value would have equated to $1.6 trillion per year. For reference, the global construction industry is worth about 10.7 trillion per year at present, roughly half of that from developed countries and half from emerging markets. We are therefore consistently in most markets underperforming by about 15%. Our lack of productivity is linked to two deeply rooted construction industry challenges: cost and schedule overruns. The average construction project overrun is by a factor of 20%, with an average cost overrun of 80%. For such a low margin industry with single-digit percentages profit, these overruns are extremely problematic, but also present the construction industry with the chance to do things differently. Secondly, several megatrends have also got the potential to profoundly impact the construction sector, including aging infrastructure, population growth outstripping capacity growth, sustainability, changes in the way we engage with the workforce, and of course, evolving politics and regulatory pressures. It's worth looking at the history of digital transformation across industries and noting that it is always much less as a result of the industry participants themselves and rather as a result of outside forces and the irresistible impact of evolving client demands. Do not become trapped in the illusion that you as a construction professional get to dictate the pace at which change occurs. Before I summarize the areas we recommend you should be focusing on to prepare your construction organization for a digital future, let's look at what the World Economic Forum came up with in conjunction with the Boston Consulting Group several years back that speaks to 3 future scenarios for the construction industry and what they call 6 no-regret moves that you can make in order to be prepared. I do think there is considerable overlap in what is being suggested here.
The world is confronted with many challenges that impact the well-being and happiness of society. Among the most severe are fast urbanization, climate change, and resource scarcity. To address these challenges in infrastructure and urban development industry, the World Economic Forum established the Shaping the Future of Construction project. But what will the future of the industry look like? How best prepare for it? The World Economic Forum, in collaboration with the Boston Consulting Group and together with global infrastructure and urban development leaders, developed 3 scenarios of the infrastructure and urban development industry's future. One is a world in which virtual reality touches all aspects of life and intelligent systems and robots run the construction industry. Another future could be a factory-dominated society in which prefabrication and modularization are used to create cost-efficient building structures. Or a third scenario, the world will face severe climate change and depleted natural resources, which urge the infrastructure and urban development industry to use earth-friendly construction methods and sustainable materials to rebuild nature. Current business models, strategies and capabilities of players in the infrastructure and urban development industry will not be sufficient for any of these future worlds. But there are 6 no-regret moves all infrastructure and urban development companies can take to prepare. 1. They must attract new talent and build up the required skills. Widening the sourcing of talent and improving the industry's image can help. The companies should also provide more modern workplaces and opportunities for learning and development. 2. Infrastructure and urban development companies need to enable change management and adaptiveness. This requires agile working methods and flexible organizations. 3. Furthermore, they need to implement digital models and data usage throughout their processes. 4. They must also adopt innovative technologies at scale. It's important to innovate in new ways and integrate new technologies. 5. Infrastructure and urban development companies need to increase integration and collaboration across the value chain. 6. Companies must also constantly identify the most promising products and market segments while embracing new businesses.
I think what we propose is perhaps a little less daunting and perhaps more practical. A metaphor is often how we can hold the most amount of information in the least amount of space, and this sturdy 3-legged stool describes 3 primary interdependent areas of focus that together provide a stable basis for improved business agility. Experiencing within more transformed and aggressively transforming industries tells us these are the 3 key pillars to successful digital transformation: people, data, and processes. Focusing on the transformation of these 3 domains helps organizations to be mission ready in a fast-paced environment where changes and thus challenges are not always predictable. These 3 pillars must be integrated, connected, and it is here that the return on technology investments get magnified. I'll quickly touch on what makes each of these pillars so important. The first pillar, connected data. The data-oriented world is moving exponentially, but the way we think and the way traditional organizations operate is still very linear. As a result, most industries find themselves in a mode of complacency. So when an exponential trend appears, they are immediately and unceremoniously disrupted. Unfortunately, by the time this occurs, it is often too late to respond. Historically, the construction industry has been positioned in the same complacent segment. For it to survive and thrive, however, organizations need to respond proactively and in strategic ways to avoid being swept over by future exponential trends. When it comes to data, we're really talking about 3 aspects: the central database environment, real-time access to information, and data analytics. A central database needs to sit at the core for the data we mostly see today being collected in siloed tools. Real-time access to information is critical. Most construction projects today are run in a reactive nature because they lack real-time integration to data. For data analysis, we need to be able to have dashboard capabilities in which we can drill down to the relevant data and insights at any point in time and with speed. The second pillar is connected processes. The building lifecycle and workflows need to be connected because construction processes are causal by nature. Construction teams operate in silos built around specialized capabilities at different stages of a project. The work of each group dependent on the prior's outputs. Of course, this process and the associated information handoffs are described in a causal linear process, but we know that what most often happens is that work orders and plans change. There are significant amounts of rework and information subsets become outdated. The knock-on effect can be lost time, budget overruns, and other unforeseen challenges. Digital platforms that allow for connected, structured workflows and the sharing of information between tools can help to reduce these sorts of project challenges. The final pillar is connected people. Remaining respectful to the pillars discussed so far, the most important transformation area for the construction industry is its people. For this reason, when talking about the first steps towards digital transformation, they must be included. In terms of people, we need to ensure just two things. We need to help people adapt to new technology, new thinking, and new working methods. Change in any organization will face resistance. Of this we can be certain. In the construction industry, legacy procedures still dominate, and for many, the perception of migrating to a new construction management approach seems almost antithetical to the way things are done. Adopting a new software is not only a shift in the workflow, but also a shift in ways of thinking and working methods. And though there is a learning curve, the payoff is well worth the effort. The second is to help people communicate and collaborate efficiently. A vital strategic imperative heading forward is to ensure that you take your people from fragmented, disconnected offline tools and connect them in an integrated way, supported by centralized data. By doing so, your teams can be much more data-driven, much more connected, and much more collaborative, with the end result inevitably leading to a company-wide and by extension an industry-wide increase in productivity. When these three pillars discussed are not integrated, teams are not able to fully comprehend the impact of any change, any action, and any decision on scheduling, budget, and timelines. Subsequently, our beloved projects can be an inefficient and risky environment to operate in. To drive our industry to become more productive, we must connect these three pillars. In so doing, we become more able to adapt to changes, face challenges, and are in effect more mission ready. Having served the construction industry for 40 years now, these are the reasons we have been making the investments to unify our product offerings as a complete solution, bringing previously siloed data together to support better collaboration, deeper insights, and automated processes. Today, we'd like to give you a little more insight into how these principles of connected people, data, and processes come together to better solve challenges in the construction industry. Let's turn on the news and see what is being reported on the outlook for the sub-Saharan construction industry in 2023 and beyond.
After facing many headwinds over the past few years, analysts have turned positive on the construction sector in sub-Saharan Africa, citing an increase in projects in 2023. Here's our reporter Ntaoleng Lechela with more of the detail on that.
Well, despite all the doom and gloom, there seems to be light at the end of the tunnel for the construction sector in sub-Saharan Africa. That's as the sector is expected to make a comeback in 2023. According to analytics and consultancy firm Global Data, output is expected to grow by a record 3.2% this year. The firm also stated that the sector's post-pandemic recovery hit a snag at the second half of last year. This, of course, comes as slowing growth fears weighed on the region. And other issues such as rising material costs have also hit the sector.
All input costs increase at levels well above the consumer price index over the last 2 years, with producer price increases reached a high of 18% late last year. The main cost drivers, however, are logistics costs that escalate over 40% as a result of the sharp increase in diesel prices, combined with the inability of Transnet to deliver the required service. Kraft paper, a key input into the packaging materials which cement producer uses, increased by approximately 60% since July 2021.
Another issue weighing on the construction industry is slowing investments. China has been at the forefront when it comes to infrastructure funding in the region. But the slowdown as the world's second largest economy was not active for the most part of 2022.
During the period of 2020 and 2021, a lot of governments did face severe measures that they institute either themselves or given external pressures to consolidate a lot of their spending. And so we saw capital projects more or less decline or reduce in order to reallocate funding to key strategic areas. But post this period, and I think over the next 3 to 5 years, there is generally bullishness around ensuring that the construction sector remains quite critical as it sits as almost as an intermediary sector and linkage for other aspects of the economy. And so construction across road and railway networks, which teeters on logistics, will be quite critical. And more so, we will also see a resumption of key facilities that will introduce growth across the continent, but more so in SSA.
Over the short term, analysts expect to see major infrastructure investments flood the oil and gas industry. We've already seen this pick up with European companies investing in rebuilding and improving facilities in Africa, particularly in oil-rich nation, Nigeria. This, however, will only be short-lived as the transition to green energy gains traction. An analyst believes that once funding for green projects take off, the region's construction sector will show growth over the long term. And this will then further boost overall growth for sub-Saharan Africa. I'm Ntauling Lechela for Business Day TV in Johannesburg.
So what we're hearing is our high-risk, low-margin industry is facing rising inflation in an economic downturn. At the same time, we hear of a backlog in infrastructure renewal, and we see government treasuries increasing infrastructure budgets. At the same time, solutions are being sought for rising populations and sustainable energy. So it is that we have this historically very typical situation for construction, where much of our largest opportunity comes and must be managed in difficult economic circumstances. Why is it that the construction industry remains a target for investment even during economic downturns? The construction industry doesn't only contribute directly to the economy, but also, due to its size, indirectly in a number of ways. Provision of employment opportunities and training. It employs 7% of the world's working population. It creates opportunity for investing and profit making. It supports other businesses in a complex supply chain. It can affect large-scale economic change due to its size. At full mast, the construction industry accounts for 13% of global GDP. It provides opportunity for private finance initiatives. It provides improved transportation systems that can open up new markets and generate opportunity. This outsized indirect impact on the economy makes construction a useful industry for public and private sector to focus investment if they want to improve their economics PG rating. PG refers to potential growth. Potential growth is the rate of growth that an economy can sustain over the medium term without generating excess inflation. PG is resource and capacity dependent. Think not only ports, rail and roads, but other targets for capital investment. Remember, this is not a country's actual growth figures, but the rate of growth economists determine is possible based on the economic fundamentals that are in place. The role of the construction sector in providing capital stock to spark economic resurgence is well documented in global economic use cases. So one of the very few levers available to governments to reignite economic growth is an investment in infrastructure. Hence, Build Back Better slogans popularized in the US election, but actually formulated years prior by the economists at the World Economic Forum. Much like what happened in the post-World War II period with investment in infrastructure and low-cost housing, these sorts of investments could be what turns the economy around in the post-pandemic landscape. And so this creates the all too familiar conditions for our industry where we face our biggest and most complex opportunities in tough economic times. The stakes are high and there is little in the way of safety nets where margins are razor thin. It is in this perfect storm that traditional retrospective cost control measures prove insufficient to insulate your business from calamity. With so many variables involved in construction projects, keeping a firm grip over cost control is essential. The most effective way to do this is to use the right construction software solution. There must be a focus on sharing key cost control information across disciplines, standardizing and unifying processes to be resilient and properly authorized, and surfacing real-time cost information to ensure action can be taken in time to appropriately influence the cost at completion of a project. Seemingly minor discrepancies on face value, when multiplied across the entire lifespan of the project, can grow into substantial problems, resulting in significant impacts on both cost and time. Not being able to bring all of the relevant information together in a timely, efficient manner makes it extremely difficult to accurately forecast where things will stand on completion of a project. It is challenging enough trying to ascertain a snapshot of where the project is currently to match cost and budget against the original plan, but to accurately forecast where the project will be at completion becomes nearly impossible. And one of the reasons for this is the way data is currently being managed in silos and recovered only retrospectively through periodic reporting. The right construction software can unify your cost data across disciplines to provide real-time insights on project expenses. This allows construction managers to identify at the earliest opportunity areas where costs are exceeding budgets, make adjustments, and predict the likely impact of those adjustments. Let's take a look at what we are proposing to help you get your people to connect their processes and all working off the same cost data in real time.
Meet the management team at ABC Construction. John is the estimation manager. John spends all his working life on Excel trying to estimate million-dollar projects to the best of his ability. John dreams about an integrated estimating and project control application. This is Mark, the procurement manager. Mark spends all day trying to buy the right resources at the right rates and quantities. Mark dreams of a transparent system where he can see exactly what John has estimated and then has upstream control on the same rate, quantity, and amounts so he doesn't go over budget. Say hi to Steve, the commercial director. Steve spends a huge amount of his time searching through various software platforms trying to generate a cost report to see where his projects are making or losing money. Constantly changing things to try to protect his profit margin, but it's so difficult to recoup the losses once they've happened. Steve dreams about real-time cost and allowable reporting at the press of a button. Meet Sarah, the CFO. Like Steve, she struggles on her reporting. Sarah can produce some reports, this time on actual costs from the projects, usually weeks after they have been incurred. Sarah and Steve fight a lot about cost allocation. Sarah dreams about real-time costing direct from the project where the cost has been incurred, so that herself and Steve have the same monthly figures. Carl is the CEO. Carl has no idea if his projects are making or losing money until they are completed. Carl spends most of his time asking for reports from his team. His team spends so much time generating the reports from their different softwares that by the time Carl reads them, they are already outdated. Carl wishes there was a way to help protect his profit margin. ABC Construction implemented RIB's powerful complete solution. Now, John uses RIB software to do his tendering linking, his estimate to his plan, forecasting his budgets and revenues, his quantities, and all his resources. Mark also uses the same system as John and gets a shopping list sent to him from the estimation team with upstream control on the rate, amount, and quantity. Mark particularly likes the ERFQ and the complete procure-to-pay cycle with instant accruals that the system provides. Steve uses the same system as both John and Mark and spends most of his time looking at his real-time cost reports and doing what-if scenarios in order to protect the profit margins on his projects. Sarah loves the real-time costs in the system directly from site, as she and Steve have the same reports including committed, accrued, and actual. Carl loves that the right software has given his team an intimate level of understanding of budgetary amounts, quantities, rates, and actual costs, bringing all the key role players in the company together to make informed decisions from a complete holistic view of the project costs at the push of a button. Future-proof your business with RIB software today. Contact us at www.rib-software.com.
My esteemed colleague will now give you further insight into how our complete solution will enable you to see and use all your information in the software integrated seamlessly together in one place, allowing you to see costs where they happen in real time directly against the budgets for the project. You can then forecast your actual costs versus your budget to determine your remaining cost and allowable, and then predict the at completion financials. Thank you all for your interest and attention. Please scan the QR codes at the end of the webcast to submit any questions or request for any more information.
And good day and welcome to everyone. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day. I know the end of the year is pretty busy for us contracting guys. And yeah, we're going to discuss a bit of cost reporting today. And I've got a couple of slides, and I'm sure many of you are looking at the bottom right or bottom left of my screen to see that I've got 108 slides to go through. Well, I'm only joking. I do not believe in death by PowerPoint, and when someone presents to me, I normally read at the bottom left how many slides they're going to present to me and at what point am I going to become not interested or bored. So yeah, we're going to discuss cost reporting and what it means to us from a construction point of view versus any other industry. So first of all, let's discuss the complexities of a construction site. So the first thing is construction and contracting industry is inherently complex. We continuously trying to manage changes on site. Materials get delivered late. We have plant and equipment that break down. We hit hard rock. We have subcontractors not performing to what our expectation is. And all these have a knock-on effect on our contract in money and in time. And if we're not managing these effectively, we are going to be in serious problems. Because of what I've mentioned previously, construction projects are marked with numerous uncertainties and potential cost overruns if we're not managing the change on site effectively. We want to explore the critical concepts of cost control and risk mitigation within our industry, and we want to shed light on strategies and best practices to ensure successful project outcome. So, we're going to look at the ability to implement construction cost tracking tools and software enabling real-time monitoring and adjustment to the project in real time so that we can affect the financial outcome of the project for our benefit. We're going to look at best practices for resource allocation, for procurement and subcontractor management, and at what stage throughout the construction process is the allocation of this cost being issued to that project. So let's take a walk back in history. Mr. Hawkey and McKinley Construction were awarded a project to build the Johannesburg City Hall in 1914. It was completed. The problem is Mr. McKinley had one massive problem. His daughter was engaged to get married to a really good friend of mine. Let's call him Morph. But the challenges around Morph is, let me introduce Morph to you. So Morph was a big thinker, a big schemer, loved to scheme on things, but never followed through. He had big dreams, but he never ever followed through on the dream. So he was a bit skint broke. He loved a good party. He continuously was partying hard. And he loved the woman. But unfortunately, Mr. McKinley was stuck with him because he was a really, really talented, good-looking guy. And his daughter was madly in love with Morph. So Mr. McKinley was sitting down with his business partner and decided, well, you know, we got this project and the only way Morph's going to survive and support his daughter is to set him up in a construction company to see if he can tender on some work and do some subcontracting to various contractors. So Morphini Construction was born. Morph was very happy because he now was set up in a business by Mr. McKinley, and marriage into the McKinley family was now imminent, and Mr. McKinley felt a bit more comfortable because our young Morph had his own construction company. So what did Mr. McKinley do? He said, well, Morph, here is a bill of quantities that I want you to price and for the civil work on the Johannesburg Town Hall. So Morph found a buddy of his who was an estimator or a quantity surveyor, and he sent him the bill of quantities and he said, well, if we get it, you will come work for me. So off we went, and Morph's buddy did the bill of quantities to the best of his ability, and lo and behold, I don't think there was any shenanigans in the background with Mr. McKinley, but Morph won the tender. And I'm sure he won it honestly up against 8 guys, and he won the tender. So what did Morph do next? Well, easy. He created a planning department. Another friend of his, fresh out of varsity, got our free candy license or student license, and got 3 days of training by our team, and he said to Morph, I can go ahead and I can do the project plan. So off he went and he created the project plan, and as we know, proper planning prevents poor performance. So Morph is now in the pound seats. So he starts his site establishment, creates his site establishment, and what does he do next? He starts allocating materials, labor, subcontractors, plant and equipment to do this project, because he needs to order materials, he has to allocate labor. One of his other buddies, also a bit of a shady character, created a subcontractor company, and he then borrowed some plant and equipment from Mr. McKinley and allocated that. So what we did, he allocated his workforce to do the job. He allocated plant and equipment, borrowed from Mr. McKinley at a reduced rate nonetheless, to dig the trench in and do the foundations and to clear site. He started ordering material because we need material on site. He was doing a batching plant, so he needed cement, stone, and water, and to create foundations. And then, of course, the nicest guy on site runs on. Our engineer runs on site. He gets involved in the project, and lo and behold, he changes the scope of works, as we all know. So what is happening to our poor buddy? We all work in our segregated silos. So we have his estimating bud, who did the bill of quantity, working out of one silo. His other friend, who was a planner, working out of a separate silo. He was ordering material. Site is working out of a segregated silo there as well. HR, or our workforce, is working out of a different silo. And then, of course, there was variation orders on site, which falls into yet another silo. And Morph realized, well, maybe construction isn't as easy as Mr. McKinley made it out to be. And he, as the CEO of Morphinia Construction, was drowning. So all we have done is slam dunk our good poor friend Morph. So in the good old days, historically we followed the construction processes and worked out of different silos. We had a head office that allocated costs after the fact, which is actually incorrect because they're not on site. Head office is support for site. We worked out of the segregated silos that operate separately from each other, and reporting happened after the fact due to the financial constraints. Our cost reporting was inaccurate because, have I mentioned segregated silos? We're trying to gather all this information from HR, from procurement, from accounts, from site, and we're trying to put it all together and then trying to make some sense of the information, and then we allocate the cost after the fact. So Excel was king. And when Excel is king, human error is or was prominent. One mistake on a macro in Excel can cost us or gain us a lot of money. So what has changed, ladies and gentlemen? Well, nothing. Construction processes remain and maintain the same sequence as they did 109 years ago when Mr. McKinley awarded Martha's project in 1914. What I mean by that, we cannot do site establishment if we haven't done a bill of quantity, if we haven't done a project plan, and if we haven't won the tender. All construction companies follow that process or the construction process, but we do it differently internally from each other. The only change is the management of big data. So challenges in construction. The only constant in construction is change. Without valuable information, we cannot manage change. As I mentioned earlier, we have variation orders, we have labor issues, we have material being delivered late, we hit hard rock, we have rain days, we have breakdown hours, and this all has an impact on our profitability of our project. We still, have I mentioned segregated silos? You're going to hear that a lot. We still operate in segregated silos because each business unit operates as its own unit. And head office allocates costs after the fact, which is due to the financial process. Any ERP or accounts package is designed and developed to report historically. And financial process dictates to us when we report. Because of the financial process, as I discussed previously, is set up or developed to report historically, we generally reporting on costs 4 to 5 weeks after a measure of work is done. And ladies and gentlemen, I guarantee you, if we've had a problem and we only pick it up 4 to 5 weeks later, we have lost a lot of money. So because we report in 4 to 5 weeks after a measure of work's done, we react to situations rather than proactively fixing the situation. So why is RIB's complete solution different? Because I normally do many of these talks throughout the year, and the big question I get is, how do I make more profit? Well, that's easy. We make more profit by making an informed decision. And how does one make an informed decision? An informed decision is made on the accuracy and value of information that we have at that point in time. Poor information equates to a poor decision. Accurate information equals a better outcome. Better outcome equates to more profit and less risk. So the minute we can gather information real time live. So at a measure of work, we have our budget or our allowable from site, and at the same point in time, real time, we have actual contract costs, and we're highlighting where the challenges are on that project. We have to be able to make a better informed decision, because we know that we are using one source of truth, because we've put everyone within the company on one data set. So we have to make a better informed decision, because we can trust the data. And because we're making an informed decision, we are mitigating risk. And by mitigating risk, that equates to more profit. Because if we are reporting 4 to 6 weeks late, we are at risk of making a poor decision, as the accuracy of the information is not real time. So how does RIB do it? Well, let's take you through our processes. And what we're going to discuss here is at what point do we actually allocate the cost to a project. And I'm going to explain the setup of how our ERP or accounts package is set up. And I hope it makes sense to us all. And then talk us through the process and why we want it, because we want an outcome. So let's have a look. A traditional ERP software or accounts package is set up on a two-ledger code structure. It's overhead and balance sheet, profit and loss. Normally created by accountants for us to report, but the challenge we have is it's always reported historically, because let's take material delivery on site. We normally place an order, material gets delivered, we sign a delivery note, and at what point does that delivery note get back to the office, and at what point do we get the invoice? Then we consolidate or run a month end, and then only once we've done that, once the invoice is in, can we then allocate the cost, which is too late. BuildSmart being developed by construction experts, that is the first difference. Our founding members, Mr. Peter Cheney and the late Mr. Peter Reynolds, both come out of the construction industry, so we understand the construction challenges. But it's been developed with our overhead and balance sheet, so all the lovely financial reporting our accountants require is there. It's IFRS 16 compliant, set up for the statutory reporting, so you're going to get balance sheets and income statements. We're going to, every single financial report you're currently getting, you're going to get on BuildSmart. But the trick is, we have set up 2 more quadrants that mimic our overhead and balance sheet ledger. And that's our contracts and plant ledgers. So for the accountants who are listening, no one is going to be playing around in your ledgers or your financial accounting side. All the magic happens in our contracts and plant ledgers. And what happens in the contracts and plant ledger is, the minute we place an order, we are committing a cost to the project. The minute we allocate a workforce, by simply capturing the workforce's hours, which we have to do, because at some point we have to pay it. It could be bi-monthly, it could be monthly. But the minute we capture their hours, it becomes an accrued cost to that project. And accrual is simply something that's occurred on site, but due to the constraints in the financial process, has not been accounted for. By capturing service meter readings on our plant and equipment, by simply doing that, we are capturing the plant and equipment cost, and it's accruing to that project. And by simply measuring a subcontractor measurement, we might pay him 7 days after our measure of work, or 14 days, or 30 days, depending on what we have negotiated with him. But by measuring his work, we simply accruing the costs, and we can report on it immediately. So this, because we do it this way, it allows us to track and monitor site live, and if there are any changes on site, we can manage it real time. Because if something happens, we're going to know about it immediately. And this is just to show you what we all entail. So we have two products that integrate. Candy, everyone knows Candy, I would believe, which is pre-tender, and then post-tender controls is BuildSmart, which is the ERP system. And just to quickly speak you through this, we handle everything from quantity takeoff, so ability to bring joins in 3D or 2D in on Candy, link it to our master file, do our on-screen measurement, which I'm sure Tabang and Cabello will go more deeper into it, and to build up our bill of quantities. Estimation, we have the ability to bring in an Excel CSV file and to then build up our costing from first principle pricing. Project planning in the same module. The beauty of that is we have a dynamic link between our estimate and plan. And by creating that dynamic link, it means we're spreading our money, resources over time. And out of that, we can then get an immediate cash flow, real-time live cash flow and forecast projection. So we can actually see the flow of money in, flow of money out, and where we actually going to break even within the project. And valuation, we have to do a valuation or a certificate to our client for the simple reason we need to create revenue. BuildSmart handles all the operations or post-tender controls, which is a full-on as you'll see there, accounting package, so IFRS 15, but everything in between. So from the procure to pay cycle, we're going to deal with procurement, we're going to deal with payroll. Not ready for all countries, but for many of the SADC countries, it is compliant with your local statutory requirements. We're going to handle your stores for you, all our stock. We're going to handle small items for you, scaffolding, small tools. Subcontractor is very important because the subcontractor is actually a creditor, but he's more than a creditor. We have to now track contra charges, retentions, etc. So we deal with a subcontractor as a subcontractor. We're going to handle all your plant and equipment for you. So from finance to how we depreciate in it, to downtime, breakdown hours, working hours, everything around plant and equipment. And we simply do this by capturing the service meter reading. Then obviously accounting, very important, full-on ERP solution, IFRS 16 compliant, and compliant within most of the SADC regions, and East and West Africa, Dubai, and wherever our offices are situated. But the beauty of it is, we're never going to need to formulate a cost report again, because we've put every single department on one platform. Even though it will feel to them that they're working in their own system, the big thing is by us working on one platform, we have a repository of data, accurate information, and that means that the reporting comes for free with the package. So what I mean by that is reporting is an outcome of the work done on the system. Good. Moving along swiftly, we're now going to go through different parts of the movement of our cost within a construction project. So the first thing we're going to do is discuss a committed cost. So what is a committed cost? It's a cost or a resource that we commit to a project that we're going to have to pay sometime in the future. So the minute we raise a requisition and create a purchase order, we have committed a material cost to that project somewhere in the future. The same with labor hours. The minute we capture hours or capture our staff's hours, we are committing our cost to that project. The minute we capturing service meter readings, we are committing to plant and equipment. And as soon as we place a purchase order on a subcontractor, we are committing a cost to that project. So labor, material, subcontractor, plant and equipment. So as discussed, the minute we commit and we place a material order in our contracts and plant ledger, it becomes a committed cost to the project. Very important that I want to mention here, we can track by company, by division, by project, by activity. So for all the accountants out there listening to me, if I haven't bored you yet and you're doing something else, it means that we never have to prefix or suffix a ledger code structure again to actually track costs, because we might have one cement supplier or concrete supplier, we might be running 7 different jobs. Only once that cost is brought into our ledger can we allocate a cost to a project, because we track in by division, by project, by activity from a bottom-up approach. It means that we can allocate the cost at source, which is at requisition from site. So that is very, very important. What is an accrued cost? And we've discussed an accrual. What is an accrual? An accrual is an occurrence on a project that has been accounted for, has not been accounted for due to the constraints within a financial process. Again, and I reiterate, any other ERP solution in the world, being great to run massive warehouses or massive shops and that, but not great for construction. So what I mean by that is a simple example. If I was manufacturing roof sheeting, I control the raw material coming into my gate. I have a 30-day account with my supplier. I sign my delivery note. I then decide my production factor. What am I going to produce? And I control the production of that raw material to get a finished IBR product. I then put that on a truck. I control that truck out of my gate to deliver to my client. And he signs my delivery note. The delivery note comes back, and from there on I've invoiced him, and I can control the cost and report after the fact because I've controlled the whole process. And as we all know, the only constant in construction is change. And what we're trying to do is manage that change through our process. Okay. So that is the accrued cost. And as you can see, the minute we capture delivery notes on site, so our guy on site literally signs a delivery note because that is a binding legal agreement with our supplier. He then logs on to BuildSmart. He literally puts in order number, quantity received, what the system is going to do. So, well, pertaining to this order, what was purchased or what was on the purchase order and what was requisitioned. And if it all balances, it has to be correct. then it will then move into our accrued cost for the project. Right. So real-time live movement from committed to accrual without anyone allocating a cost. What is an actual contract cost? Well, an actual contract cost takes place once we verify an activity in BuildSmart. So a simple example, that roofing that was delivered on site that my storeman on site accepted, he verified quantity. The invoice has come back to our head office. The delivery note, well, we don't know if it's got back, because generally we know that we swear, or our project managers swear on their lives, that they drop the delivery notes at reception and no one can find them. Meanwhile, when he washes his pickup, or in South Africa we call it a bakkie, on Sunday morning to have a clean car, underneath the seat with his McDonald's packet, lo and behold, is the envelope with the delivery notes. And what does he do? He just chucks it away. Anyway, so when we get an invoice back, we literally log on to BuildSmart, and all we do is we do an invoice recon. That simply means that a clerk in our accounts department is going to capture invoice number, they're going to capture order number, and they're going to capture net invoice amount. What the system's going to do is say, pertaining to this order, what was delivered versus what was purchased versus what was requisitioned. If it balances money-wise, it has to be correct, and then is our month-end recon. So besides us checking and monitoring the actual contract cost through, we're also making everyone's life easier, because we're not duplicating or triplicating work. Because currently that's exactly what we're doing. With Candy and BuildSmart, we are doing the work once and following it through the process. So to go back, when we accept delivery on site, we verifying quantity. When we doing our invoice recon, we verifying price. And if the two adds up, it has to be correct, and therefore our invoice recon is done, and then it moves into our financial ledger with an approval, and then our normal financial processes take place. Right, and there we can see Morfini is now happy with the movement of his costs throughout the project. So now we have a happy Morph. He's nearly at altar with Mr. McKinney's daughter. And what have we done for him? We have put exactly what we said we would for Morph. We have put our estimation, our planning department, our site guys, change of orders or change of scope of work, variation orders, all on one platform, and we have a happy Morph because we have unified his teams. Everyone is looking at the same data for once. Our cost meetings, as we all know, which is let's have tea and cake and be happy. Yeah, right. We all know cost meetings are a bloodbath if we don't have correct information. We've now unified Morfinia Construction and Morph's team. Everyone's looking at the same data, and Morph is making some money, and Mr. McKinney is looking at him from a different point of view right now. And he's saying, well, maybe it's not such a bad thing for Morph to marry my daughter, because he is actually making some money and he's moved out of my guest spare room, and he has now bought a little townhouse for when he marries my daughter to move into. So I don't have to see him every day. But all great and well having all this. What does it mean to us as a team? Because once we gathered all this information, we want to understand what we can do with this information to affect the outcome of the project. And this, to me, ladies and gentlemen, is the most important part of having these two softwares integrated, because we can now start running what-if scenarios, and we can now start affecting the outcome of our projects financially to make us be more profitable. And that is what I'm going to show you now, or Morph and myself will show you. So as discussed, what does this mean to us as a team? It means at a measure of work today, Candy is going to produce an allowable or our budget for that point in time in the project. Because we are accruing costs and monitoring the costs throughout the project and allocating at source, or allocating the cost at source, Build Smart's going to produce an actual cost at the same point in time. And it's going to give us a variance. So as we can see, we have an unhappy Morph again, because he's losing money. And at completion, he's also losing money. So what does that mean? What are the two aspects of a construction project that we can actually control? It's the production factor, or the execution of the project, if we change that, or if we can go and negotiate better key commodity buying. There's no ways we can go back to the client and say, we made a mistake, sir. We need to requote and get a higher price. We know what our main contractor or developer or client is going to say. He's going to tell us to go fly a kite. So in Candy, there's poor Morph having his heart attack. In Candy, we now have the ability to go in, and the first thing we want to look at is a resource list with cost rates. So the final rate is what we originally allowed for in our tender on key resources. Our cost rate in blue comes from Build Smart, and that is what we are actually paying on commodities or key commodity resources. We can then go into Candy or go back to our planner and our estimator, and we can say, so you're going to see two worksheets at the bottom here. The one on the left is what we originally allowed for, that cost worksheet on the execution and cost rates of this project. We can never change that, because then all we're simply doing is shifting the goalpost. We want to always measure against what we originally allowed. The worksheet on the right is a mirror image of the cost worksheet on the left. So on this cost code worksheet, we're now going to run a scenario plan or a what if scenario. So if we do something differently from now on in, how is it going to affect the outcome of our project? So we have the ability, Candy and Build Smart working together has the ability to extrapolate that information and to predict into the future. Ladies and gentlemen, that could be 6 months into the future, 2 years into the future, 5 years into the future. We can always predict the outcome. So in this instance, we have now got better key commodity buying, and we've got a 9-cube tipper, as we can see there. So we've changed our prices, so key commodity buying, and we've changed our production factor, and we can run that report again. And the minute we run it again, Candy's going to say, well, at completion, we have a happy Morph, because we've potentially clawed back a loss to a gain. Now this is when the financial team says, but it is construction, it continuously changes. I get that, ladies and gentlemen. But now instead of our cost meetings being a bloodbath and a blame game, because we can trust the information that we have, because we know it to be from one source of truth, we can interrogate that information, we can trust it, and instead of our cost meetings now becoming a bloodbath, we can actually have our tea and cake, and we can sit together as a team and say, guys, we've identified the problem down to an activity. What can we do differently from now on in to affect the outcome in a positive way for us to be more profitable? So strategies for implementing real-time cost reporting. We always want to use digital tools and software to capture and analyze data in real time. The integration of different data sources is exactly what we've given you, because we're integrating, have I mentioned segregated silos before? We're integrating all the segregated silos in our construction company onto one platform, so that financial data and our project management data can look at the same numbers. We can get a complete picture of costs, breaking down the segregated silos. I don't think I've mentioned that before. And within a company, allowing transparent information. So all departments are looking at the same information without anyone formulating a cost report. And that allows collaboration and communication between different stakeholders, so including our contractors on site, our project managers, our financial teams, and I say that very lightly because that could be procurement, financial, plant and equipment, it could be our yard stock, it could be our subcontractor management, all looking at the same information at the same time, real time. So the conclusion, we want to have total downstream control of our projects. By doing this, again, we're allowing us as a team to analyze real-time, accurate information so that we can gather insights to the shortfalls on the project. But more importantly, so that we can run a scenario, a what-if scenario, to determine how we as a team can affect the outcome of our projects in the future for our project's financial benefit. So at the end of the day, to allow us to become more profitable, because that's why we're in business. So thank you for your time. I hope I didn't bore you too much. And upwards and onwards for our buddy Morph. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good break over the festive season, wherever you're traveling. May it be blessed and safe. And we look forward to welcoming our current clients and potential new clients back in the new year. And should you require any more information about how our software can benefit your team, please do not hesitate to drop us an email or to contact one of our offices worldwide. And again, I appreciate your time. Thank you.